Hi, we're here in Irvington on Hudson at the lovely Foundation for Economic Education facility. I'm sitting here with Steve Horwitz. He's a professor of economics at St. Lawrence University, and he's also a writer on the group blogs The Austrian Economist and Liberty and Power. Steve, great to be with you.
Thanks, Pete. That the family was generally a pretty awful institution before capitalism came around. Obviously, husbands had complete and utter power over their wives, over their children. Women and children were essentially sort of economic assets. The thing to remember, of course, is that in those days, families were the unit of production. That's the way people earned their income, was within the family, producing and selling to the marketplace or consuming what they produced. And what capitalism did was really two things. First, it enabled people to get to work outside of the family. With capitalism and the factory system, people began to hire people from outside their family. Think about a factory, for example. And that enabled people to earn a living separate from the family. And I think that's one key piece of the puzzle that capitalism did. By removing the family as the site of production, it removed a lot of the ways in which the family was particularly nasty institution for women and for children. The other piece of that puzzle, of course, is that capitalism raised wages and provided people with a level of wealth that they never had before. And those two things together are important, because what they did, among the things that they did, one certainly was to reduce the average size of the family. One of the things we know families, say, before the Industrial Revolution were very large. Why? Well, parents needed kids to work on the farm or work in the cottage industry, wherever it might be. But certainly now that now that parents were able to earn enough income on their own, and even eventually males or one parents earn enough income on their own, parents didn't need to have those children earning income, and the number of kids has declined, and parents have been able to invest in their children in ways that they didn't before. We went from a culture, in the Middle Ages and before, where parents, children frequently died, before their 5th birthday or their 18th birthday, and parents were sort of unable to do much about that. Now we see a world where we can't even stand to have children sick for a day or two. Our whole view of children has changed in the meantime, and a lot of that, again, is due to the changes that capitalism brought about. I think the other thing to point out is that capitalism changed the nature of marriage. For most of human history, marriage was an economic or a political partnership, and this notion that we have that marriage is about love is really only a post-industrial, post-capitalist phenomenon in the last 150 years, that people could afford to marry someone because they love them, not because they would make a good partner, a good sort of a partner in the economic work that they had to do. I think that's a real key. And I think the last piece of that story is that's, I think, a good part of the reason, or it helps us understand why same-sex marriage has become such an essential issue in our own time. Really, once marriage becomes about love, and once you've separated sort of marriage from the economic and political parts, and reduced the centrality of children within our understanding of marriage, then it's completely understandable. Two things. One, that same-sex couples would want to get in on this institution, since it's been divorced from these other kinds of things, so to speak. The other thing, of course, is that the notion, again, of wage labor, of working outside the family, made it possible for gay men and for lesbian women to survive economically outside the family, which certainly they couldn't have done in an earlier time. So those, I think, again, that's a really quick overview of a whole number of ways that I think capitalism has liberated the family. Last point I make is it's the irony of this is on both sides of the political spectrum. You have people on the right, conservatives, who love, or at least say they love, free markets, but don't like these sort of changes that capitalism has brought forward. So in a way, they're sort of standing atop capitalism saying stop. And the problem, of course, is that if you're going to really have markets, you can't stop this kind of ongoing cultural change. On the other hand, people on the left have the opposite problem. They like the cultural change, but refuse to give credit where credit's due, which is to recognize the role that capitalism has played in bringing those about. And to the extent that they're stifling capitalism, they're stifling the very dynamism that produces those social changes that they like so much. Or we'd have guys riding around in the big yellow RV doing what they're doing. I would have said you're crazy, but it's happened. And so in that sense, I'm optimistic.